Hello and welcome to SME TV. I'm your host, Angela Vithoulkas, bringing you the latest in news and views for the SME community. The old saying of cash is king may now become vintage and updated to data is king, because each piece of data is virtually a currency, quintillions or petabytes. Who measures or counts that? Stay watching to find out. To join our SME TV community, just subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need your support, not just for us, but for all SMEs, and we encourage you to comment and share SME TV. Joining us today to talk about using data and AI to strategically help businesses grow, reimagine or reinvent from data is Elisa Choy, economist and data strategist. Welcome, Elisa.
Thank you so much, Angela.
Quintillions and petabytes. Never heard of this till I started to talk to you. And then I looked them up. And quintillions, well, you said, has 18 zeros. And petabytes is 1,000 terabytes?
Well, it's 15 zeros.
15
yes.
zeros,
Yep.
Okay. And they are different measurements of data.
Yes.
And how many quintillions of data is out there in a year or a month or?
Well, every single day, 2.5 quintillion bytes of data is created by our actions, by our events. Machines log out what we do online. All of this sits out on the ether, which makes up 90% of the world's data that's created in the last 2 years.
So 18 zeros, quintillions of data, that's a lot of information, right? Okay. So all of this information that is out there, people have been trying for a long time to harness it for different purposes. And when we think of data, we think of personal or private information, but this is stuff that's just out there. And as an economist, you interpret data and you forecast. But as a data strategist, you bring all of that together as a business plan almost when a client asks a question. So explain to everyone out there in viewer land, what does a data strategist / economist do?
Okay, so as a data strategist, as an economist, it's about taking the what's going on in the world and understanding change. So we live in a world that's in constant disruption. We're not just talking about COVID.
No.
And data is the barometer for change. And we live in a world now where technology is at our fingertips to mine this information using AI faster, cheaper, better. So when businesses come to me and say, it could be any question they want to ask, but specifically around the market, if you want market insights, you need market data. And that stuff sits out online on the ether. So using AI, we can analyze petabytes of content and how people engage with this to understand how people feel about topics, issues, brands. Because what that says is when people care about something emotionally, they can change their behaviour. And that's how I predict how change happens in an industry.
So data is, it's a tangible asset or product that you end up with, or you get to start with, and then you pull it together, or you know where to look when you've been given direction by your client, right? So they'll say in their particular market, they want to know, do people really love red shoes? So you'll find out. And now, in the old days, when it was more of get a focus group or a poll or a survey, it often was very expensive and it took a lot longer to get to where you needed to go, and probably not always as accurate. So that's changed because with AI, it's faster, better, cheaper, as you said. But I want to ask you, and this is a civilian thing, this is like if you imagine the TV game show Family Feud.
Yes.
And the question is, we surveyed 100 people and here are their top answers. So now it'll be something like, instead of saying we surveyed, we said we've got petabytes of data or a quintillion amount of data, and we know the top 50 responses to how we feel about having our newspapers delivered or getting them online. So it's those kind of basic questions for market research or market insights which your clients ask for.
100%. So the traditional methods of survey says they have their place still, just like a print newspaper and books, they have their place. But what we're finding is, as you know, surveys are biased and they do take a lot of time. They do cost a lot of money. Yep. And what people say they'll do in the future doesn't actually correlate with what they will actually do. So when you remove that bias and you have a method to systematically, consistently, accurately, fast and efficiently and accurately predict the future, surveying the market, where people are engaging online with content every single day in their natural environment, then you have an unbiased view of emotions and opinions. See, we want to find what people deeply care about, not the 93% of noise that's out there. There's so much noise. And when you find what people deeply care about, then you can make some very smart, confident decisions with data.
And make decisions about your business and moving forward with your business that otherwise you may not know. So I think it's quite normal for any, and we should look at this from the SME perspective, but it's quite normal for a business owner to make assumptions, because this is where we start to get into trouble, right? You make assumptions about your own business, you make assumptions about your customer and your market, and you could be incredibly wrong. It wouldn't be unusual to be wrong. But when you actually have data, there's no escaping the facts. And as you said, when people are often surveyed or polled, they don't always respond honestly. But if they're unconsciously participating in the field of data out there, they're giving their real responses, so you're getting real information.
100%.
And that's how you make the solid decisions moving forward.
100%.
Whether there should be no sugar added to Coke or added.
That's right. Well, in fact, we did a recent study testing 150 topics around global wellness. And within that, it's a very broad topic, and we looked at 6 key industries, one of which was food and nutrition. And it's funny you mentioned no sugar, because back in the day, sugar-free was such an important element in health and wellness in the mindset of consumers. Now, I can tell you it's not. So anybody who's plugging sugar-free, they're now tone deaf.
They're not listening.
They're not listening.
They're not evaluating what's actually happening. They're just making an assumption that because sugar-free might have been a popular thing with the market 10 years ago, that it's still automatically is. This is the problem though, isn't it? Just because something was popular 10 years ago doesn't mean it's going to be popular forever. And unless you can put a pin on the map and peg, right, here's where it's changed.
Yes.
You're going to miss, so you're going to lose your business, or you're going to become extinct, a dinosaur. You're not going to be able to pivot or reinvent or add another stream of revenue, or when a global pandemic comes, you're not going to be ready. I don't know if anyone was ready for that. Look, let's look at SMEs. What are the advantages for SMEs on how they could use data to keep their business going or start a new one? I mean, we've talked before about internal data,
Yes.
so how you interpret what happens internally, and then what you do, which is the external data.
Yes.
So how would SMEs
Okay.
look at that?
So very simply, you should always look at 2 things. You've got your internal data, which is information around your customers that you collect about what they buy, who they are, where they live, etc.
And you should collect that.
You should always value that. That is your data. But also keep in mind that don't lose sight of the market outside your business. So if you own a restaurant, for example, you could be polishing your silverware, coming up with the best menu, but if you're not paying attention to what's outside your business, on the street, in your suburb, in the industry, you could still remain irrelevant and nobody walks into your restaurant. So when you're looking at change and navigating change, it's all about market data and using insights using AI, and it's also about remaining relevant. And we can see that COVID has completely disrupted the business of every industry, basically, forever for some. And that's not a bad thing. It means that there are opportunities that we haven't spotted yet. And are you going to go to your survey or poll or focus group? Are you going to go to your internal data set of known customers, which is a subset of the market? No, you need to go and look at market data. You need to understand what's now interesting, what's not, what's relevant to people and what's not, so that you can position your product or your service, your message of your business on point.
So I know we also had a chat the other day about some businesses that were producing one product or had a service, and then suddenly, because of COVID, switched to doing hand sanitizer, for instance. And for some of them, that helped them economically just get out of a hole. But that's not responding to data. That's not responding to having a plan B or understanding where your market's going. That's just, putting a Band-Aid on a big hole that's not really going to work. What we're talking about here is reinventing or reimagining based on data, based on fact, so that you can get ahead in the market, so you can predict change. And right now, if we look at industries, for instance, taxis and Uber, and that industry was disrupted, had they done some good data research, they would have realised that customers are wanting something else. And considering that it was already happening overseas, there's milestones that are missed, right? This is the problem. Instead of complaining about being disrupted, be the disruptor.
100%. There are so many businesses like the taxi industry, like bricks and mortar retail, like a lot of those traditional industries that have operated in the same way for so long. Some of them have gotten so big, very comfortable. Big banks is one of them. I just wrote a piece this morning around why big banks need to listen to their customers. So this is an era where you need to embrace change. And so it frustrates me when there are businesses that just don't pay attention to the signals in the market, and then it's too late.
So here it is. There is evidence there though. This is the thing. You're not taking data and crunching the numbers to say what you want it to say. You're presenting them objectively and saying, here's what it's saying.
100%. So
the difference is the question, right?
The question is so important. Having the right clarity on question saves you so much time and effort. And as a data strategist, that's what I help businesses do. Help them define what's the most meaningful question to answer, whether it's market data or internal data.
Another key thing that you say is attention is easy to buy, engagement is earned.
Yes.
And that's the difference about actually delivering something in your business that the market is interested in.
Yes, attention you can buy through advertising. If you've got a lot of money, you have a lot more advertising. But does it cut through the noise? Does it actually communicate the message that makes people care?
Or convert?
Which eventually means conversion. Because if the three elements of engagement, which you have to earn, are being clear on what you're saying. And that's aligned with what people deeply care about. So you have to talk about stuff that people deeply care about. And that's what we measure in emotion. The second element is how you speak about it. So that matches the tone. Again, it's like if you're talking about an issue and people are deeply angry about something and you're not speaking to that anger, you're off tone, you're tone deaf. The message doesn't get heard, you don't get engagement. And the third element is just brilliant execution. So just like when you're making a wedding cake for the customer, don't serve it on a paper plate. So execution, get the rolled Dalton out and serve it well. So there's three elements of what you're saying, how you're saying it, and execution. Those three elements create deep engagement.
So if we look at what you do for a living, so the flow of data analysis once you've done it. So I've asked you, I want to know whether everyone's going to wear red shoes next season. That's my question. You're going out to the market, you've got all the data, you come back, right? You've got the report. So the report's done. Take me through that flow of the process of it.
Okay, so the first thing is I'll have to understand the context of your business. Any data analysis, the power is actually in the context and the story. So it'll be understanding your business, and that's just a consulting element. Then when we define a set of questions, is it really red shoes? Is it a suite of other things? Then we settle on what are the right questions that you need to answer that is going to deliver the biggest bang for buck, that is answerable by data that's available today, and also can you actually execute the insights if I give it to you?
That's the thing. You've got to follow through.
You've got to follow through.
You've got to follow through. On that note, thank you. Everyone out there in YouTube land, if you haven't already subscribed, it's very simple. You press a button, click, and you've subscribed. And you'll get the latest in news and views from SME TV. To Piedmont Studio, thank you so much for making us look and sound great. And to the SMEA Association, without you, this wouldn't happen. If you have any comments, tips, tricks, questions, stories, send them straight to me, news@smea.org.au. And of course, we're across all the socials. And we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.